Okay, we are live. I hope everybody can see me. Welcome to YYC Dev. Good evening. I hope we are starting on time. I think we are. So where is everybody from? Can you guys post in chat where you're coming from? Tell everybody a bit about yourselves, whether you guys are students or been programming since the 90s like me. Yikes. So we're streaming our meetups now on both YouTube and on Twitch under Calgary Tech. So you can find us in both places. So if you've never been here before, YYC Dev we're a technology agnostic, collaborative, community-led group here to support software practitioners in the Calgary region. It is volunteer-led, so I want to thank the mods that we have in the chats here today. We have Kevin helping to moderate the YouTube channel, so say hi to him. He is a high school student who does a lot of volunteering in the tech community. Awesome kid. Say hi to him and give him some thanks for taking time out of his day. And over on Twitch, we have Tiffany. She's another one of our devs over here at Pixel Tree. Really appreciate her taking time out of her evening to help out as well. So in the last couple years, we've been hosting YYC Dev online, and it's been really great watching the community grow. We're actually really excited to be hosting our next meetup in person, which will be our first in-person meetup in like 3 years or something like that. It's been a while. It'll be on June 28th at the Platform Calgary building. We're going to have Justin and his friends from Western Mechatronics. The Western Mechatronics, I just heard about them at the Alberta Tech Symposium a few weeks ago. Their organization teaches junior high and high school students about robotics. And so they're going to be bringing in some of the robots to show us what they've been working on. They just got back from the World Championship competition in Dallas, where their teams placed either first or were semifinalists in their respective divisions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. The event is going to be open to anyone grade 6 and up. So share the event with your friends and family. I'd love to see more people out. Bring some kids out who are interested in learning about robotics or how to get into it. I'm going to be bringing my kids out as well, so I hope to see you guys there. And keep an eye on the meetup announcements for more information about how to attend. We will need RSVPs for that one, since we do have a limit on how many people we can have in the facility. And I'm hoping to get some sponsors to pitch in for pizza, so it should be a pretty good time. We're going to be doing that one a little bit earlier at 5 p.m. So that people who are working downtown can just come to it before they go home. And we want our events to be as accessible as possible. So if you're struggling with childcare for any future meetups, please reach out to me on Meetup, and if there are enough people, we can definitely look at bringing in some childcare so that everybody can attend. It's something that's really that I'm really passionate about, because as a mom, I can't go to all these events if I don't have childcare. So I want to make tech more accessible to moms and anybody with responsibilities taking care of kids. So if you are interested in networking with others, we hang out on the Platform Calgary Discord server. I think Kevin and Tiffany should have invite links for that they'll post in the chat. I will be there after the meetup for a bit. If you guys want to chat and hang out, you can network there with other people in the tech community. We do job postings there sometimes, and just generally asking questions. I think that's it for housekeeping. So if you have questions for the panels later, please post them in the chat, and we will try to get to it if we have the time. The moderators are going to collect those questions for me, and we'll see. So I will be your moderator for today. For those I haven't met yet, I am Serene, and I am the founder of Pixel Tree. We're a software consultancy that's passionate about seeding the values for a sustainable tech ecosystem. What does that mean? Basically, it just means that we want to see Calgary grow in tech, and I believe that the tech education pipeline is really critical for us to have a thriving innovation district. So our company hires a lot of junior developers, and we train them to be the best software developers the city has ever seen. And we also work with entrepreneurs at Platform Calgary who are interested in building tech, and we run workshops to teach them about software so they can make more informed choices. We are hiring software developers of all seniorities. So if you're interested in applying to our company, please check out our website. We're at pixeltree.ca. On our career section, you can learn more about our role and how to apply. I've talked enough. So let's get to the panelists. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and let's start with Jose.
Hey guys, my name is Jose Bautista. I graduated high school 2 years ago and decided to become a software developer. I attended Lighthouse Labs Bootcamp in November, graduated in November, and since then I've just been keeping up on learnings, trying to learn new technology like TypeScript, GraphQL, and just build projects to help me along. And that's really about me.
Hello there, my name is New Fan. I'm a junior developer at Medidas Technology, and it's a small startup in St. Albert, and I'm located in Calgary. So I started my first tech job completely remotely. And so my small company, we actually are trying to incentivize safe driving. And for that, our flagship product is Trip Score. So what you do if you drive like actually within speed limits, especially in Alberta, you actually get points in contests. And that's one way we are trying to reduce, like, let's face it, there's some crazy drivers in Calgary, especially Deerfoot. So hopefully, if you know anyone who are those crazy drivers, download our app, and hopefully by winning some contest, they would actually drive the speed limit and let me merge. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Leah. I recently graduated from the University of Alberta. I was actually living in St. Albert, but moved to Calgary pretty recently. I'm working as a software developer at Neo Financial, and if you haven't heard about Neo Financial, we're kind of just trying to increase the positive experience for banking for Canadians now, hopefully internationally later. But yeah, excited to talk to you guys today.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for the offer to participate, and thanks to everyone working behind the scenes on this. And great to chat with Leigh and you, Jose, and of course, Serene. A little bit about me. So my name is Tristan Cole. I have a background in history, politics, international relations, and I did a 3-month web coding and development bootcamp. So I've been coding for 6 months. And since March, I've been working here in Calgary as a junior software developer for Pixeltree.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I think that we have a very nice assortment of people here. So, Tristan, since you are already talking, tell us about what you did before entering tech.
Okay, what I did before tech. Okay, so I actually, switched to tech in my mid-career. So I have an 11-year background working in international development, education, and project management. So I've been pretty fortunate with that because I've worked in 17 countries around the world. And what I was doing prior to tech was I was working for the UN in Germany. And after that, I was briefly a software consultant before seriously considering the switch to actually to doing something about my desire to change careers into software dev. So perhaps a little unusual in my pathway. So a lot of artsy skills and a lot of talking skills and fluff, not so much actually creating. But really excited to be part of the journey.
That's awesome. How about you, Nu? Did you always want to be a software developer?
No, actually, I still remember. I actually have a geo degree, and I remember nearly failing my computer science course at U of C. So did not expect this route. I just couldn't find a job during the downturn, and there was a life event when I had like a medical issue. So I took like 2 years off to refocus on that. And during that time, like Tristan, I was a hobbyist artist, and what got me into coding actually was building my website, and it was actually through CSS and HTML that I got into coding. Because for you guys to know, if you suffer for your first computer science course learning Java or Python and realize you hate it, it's not a sign, if I'm an example, that you're not meant to be in software. I had a good time teaching myself that I decided to go to SAIT actually for a 2 years diploma in software development. So that's my unusual story going to tech.
That's awesome. I think that's great advice for anybody, that our introductions into tech don't have to be necessarily traditional through school or through boot camp. We can find that passion from something else. So Leah, what made you decide to go into software?
What made me decide to go into software? I think I come from like a slightly more traditional path and less interesting path than you were interested in. My dad was always really into IT. I didn't start at university in software development. I started business, but he kind of could tell that I wasn't really satisfied with my degree. I wasn't really being creative in any way, or wasn't really being maybe pushed. And he encouraged me to kind of just apply or like give it a shot. And hadn't really considered going into anything different. I was kind of like a little bit honestly lost at the time. And I applied to computer science on the last day that you could apply in the second year of my business degree. And ever since I got in, I just absolutely loved it. Loved working with hardware as well. So a little bit more traditional in that sense.
How about you, Jose? Why'd you go into software?
My case is more weird because since I graduated 2 years ago, I graduated in the COVID class, so 2020. After that, we realized school was going to be completely different. It wasn't going to be in person anymore. And I wasn't really liking the online school and then the way you had to teach yourself. So I took a year off, and then fortunately enough, my uncle is a senior developer in the UK. He told me about this career and then told me to start doing courses like Free Code Camp and then try to get into that and see if I liked it. And then after I did enjoy it, I decided to pursue it and go to a boot camp. And since then, I've just been keep learning and keep building projects.
What did you want to do in high school?
In high school, I wanted to be an engineer till I hit grade 12 math. Then after that, I realized I didn't want to do it anymore.
That's good enough reason. There's a lot of math. I think if you go through the traditional computer science route, there's still a lot of math, which is weird because you don't really end up.
I've heard about that too. Yeah.
I went through. I did a computer science degree at the UFC, and there was a lot of math, and I did. So let's see. What did you think the industry would be like? Does anybody want to volunteer?
For me, I thought the industry was going to be really easy to get to or get into as soon as you like graduated from any school. I thought it was going to be really easy, and you just have to go on LinkedIn and hit the easy apply a couple times, and then you'll get a couple offers. I realized that's completely the opposite. You have to start connecting, networking, talk to people, go to events to actually like let your name out in the community so people know who you are and what you do. That's one of the things that were different for me.
Leah, what was your job seeking experience like?
My job seeking experience. I started applying for kind of internships in my second or third year of computer science, and I worked at kind of a corporate situation, which was very new to me. Working in like corporate tech, it's very different than working in kind of like a startup environment. And I luckily kind of came across Neo nearing the end of my third year and interned here. And honestly, it was great. It definitely put into perspective how different things can be in the tech industry. I was a little skeptical based on kind of the media portrays like startup culture is just this like crazy or maybe like lacking some kind of professionalism, but it's definitely not the case at all. So I was really pleasantly surprised.
Tristan, what did you think that software is going to be like when you're in boot camp?
Well, during boot camp, I didn't actually put too much time into it, thinking about what the industry would be like because I was so busy learning. But like what originally got me to pivot was, I mean, after when COVID occurred, right, it changed everything for everyone. So a lot of people kind of reflected on what they were doing, what they wanted to do in the future, and I was no different. So I started to look, I mean, I'm a big context guy. It's always been what I've been doing. So I started to think about the role of technology and software in the societies, how COVID has accelerated trends that we're seeing. For example, online physical shopping, drive to get more children and adults into coding, logistics, how people learn, and now the huge uptake in online learning. So this whole thought process really got me to think about my future. So I wanted to future-proof my career. At the same time, I wanted to create something, right? So I can write really well, I can waffle and fluff really well, and I've won awards for that, for writing. But I wanted to create stuff, right? I wanted to build something, and I love learning. So that's kind of what focused me onto software development generally. And so I did my research, spoke to some people, read a lot of articles, that kind of stuff before I made the plunge. But as for the industry, I mean, like Leia said, you hear stories about startups, you hear about the long hours and things, and you see stereotypical representations. But I kind of ignored all that. I was really expecting it to be like any other sector, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's kind of been my experience in my 11 years so far. I had a friend working for a big software company here in Calgary. He works with Ruby on Rails, and he loved it. And he told me about his day-to-day. So he also talked about the hybrid nature. So I had some ideas of kind of a benchmark, but nothing really scary, right? I just went into it with an open mind.
So Leah, I think this question in the chat's for you. They're asking where your first internship was.
My first internship was at ATRF. It's Alberta Teachers Retirement Fund in Edmonton. I think the headquarters is out of. I was like working on the security team doing. They were doing some security awareness training, but it didn't seem to suffice for the amount of phishing emails their company was targeted at. So like looking at alternative ways to like scan emails. It was definitely interesting, but certainly working at a different pace in a very different environment.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to have a list of all the companies that are hiring interns. I think their information is really scattered, but you don't really have it in one place. So, New, what did you think the industry would be like since you did a career pivot as well? So what were you thinking it would be like that you wanted to pivot into?
Well, okay, my first software job right now is a small startup. I thought it'd be training or documentation. I knew the startup would be like kind of chaotic. That wasn't the case. It was basically a swim or sink situation. And I think the biggest eye-opening thing was how messy software development actually is in real world. Because in school you have like specific requirements in your assignment, but I realized with my job is like I don't even know what that requirement is, and you have to like go to meetings and a lot of meetings trying to figure out what that is that you're trying to build. So I would say that's the biggest eye-opening thing. A thing that didn't surprise me, and I kind of knew this going to tech, was our crazy interview process until I actually have to like suffer through it. And I was like, oh my God, all this thing you hear about whiteboarding, these multiple stages is all true, depending on the company. It was my experience.
Jose, did you want to add into that since you were kind of talking earlier about the challenges of finding a job?
Yeah, I realized that in some interviews, it is very complicated, and you do have to study some things that you aren't already know, like especially algorithms. At the end of boot camp, I realized that I thought I was ready, but I realized I had to like practice more algorithms. So like Leak Code, I forgot the other website. I think it was HackerRank. Just keep practicing algorithms until you could just get them without any problems, without searching up the answer.
How did the different companies differ in their interview processes?
Some gave me a take-home test. Others would give me an algorithm test. I personally prefer a take-home test because it shows more like that way you can Google, you know what to build. It gives you more freedom, like frameworks or pure JS, pure CSS. It gives you more freedom to choose and express who you are and how you develop.
Okay, so this question wasn't on the list, but I think we're kind of going down this path. So if from people who recently, got jobs or were applying for jobs, what do you wish was included or not included in the interview process? Open question, whoever wants to interrupt each other.
I'd like to maybe say something about that. I think for a lot of software development jobs, the interview process is pretty standard in terms of like a technical interview, and it's just easy to throw like an algorithm question or a lead code question at developers and just be like, okay, finish this up. But it doesn't always really measure or give like a great measure of how strong of a programmer or software developer you are. I do wish the interviews were a little bit more tailored to your role at a company, because like theory will get you in the door at a job that you learn in university, but a lot of people nowadays are self-taught and they're such strong programmers that the fundamentals in like algorithm complexity questions and like heavy math technical questions are kind of not super relevant to what their day-to-day is going to be like. So I think it's unfortunate that interviewing sometimes is testing skills that you're not actually going to be using. Of course, it's always great to know, but it's my opinion on technical interviews. I wish it was a little bit more, there was more focus on the person and who they are as in a team.
Yeah, that's a good point. May I chip in more than I am chipping in? So I think what you're alluding to here, Leah, is like soft skills, right? Fit, it's like culture fit. And a lot of the times I think that's really hard to assess, right? I mean, especially if you have a time test, for example, because people handle stress in different ways, right? They learn differently, they process things differently. So it's like Jose, he likes take-home things. I prefer the take-home things too, because again, I'm a big context guy, so I can do some research and I can work on it like that. So I think I was I think I was very lucky to get connected with Pixeltree the way I did, and go through that very organic process, which was very much, well, first of all, I was very surprised about how it actually worked. So I took a weekend off after the weekend, but then I just started studying straight away and reaching out through Slack, Discord, Rainforest Alberta, even Reddit. I was looking to connect. I just started talking to people. And that's how I got connected to Pixeltree. And I guess I passed the first fit test, the culture test, and it kind of snowballed and went from there. But I mean, everyone wants good people on their team, right? Everyone wants to work with good people. So I think you really need to, when looking at people transitioning into tech from other sectors like me, they have a lot of soft skills, right? You have a lot of transferable skills. You have a lot of other skills that are difficult to measure because your technical test or your cultural fit test, whatever it is, isn't really designed to measure their other background. So I really think those kind of holistic approaches and the approach to kind of take a risk on juniors too, right? Because the juniors are the software developers of the future. And I think also doing that demonstrates a lot of commitment, right, to building those ecosystems, to developing the capacity of others. And that's something I really agree with. And in fact, that was my career, building capacity all around the world in education. So that for me was a no-brainer. So I definitely think that there's a whole range of tests, and I think I did very well. I'm very fortunate to be where I am. I'm really happy. So I do anyone out there, do cultural fit tests, chat to people, like get out there, just talk.
Yeah, I do like to add one thing I am glad company are changing is I noticed with some technical online assessments, especially with the bigger company, does this get a lot of people. And like Leanne said, it's easy to send it to us. It's just some of them actually now let you Google stuff while you take those assessments, which I'm really glad they're switching to, versus one, I kid you not, one of the company was like, you have to turn your camera on and while you take the test, and I got so stressed out because I was like freaking out more than I should have. So I'm really glad for companies realize now we're not supposed to memorize syntax or some of these. If you know how to Google, which to be honest, we all do it, I don't think any of us memorize all these programming rules or patterns on our day-to-day job. So I'm really glad they're changing that. And just based on what like Leah and Tristan said, yeah, I think there should be more emphasis on soft skills, especially people who are willing to help each other. Because one thing I do like about my current team is if we're having trouble, we would just message each other on Discord and immediately screen share and start like pair programming, or usually suddenly 5 of us trying to help this one coworker trying to debug their problem. And I feel like it's hard to find those kind of people, because I'm not sure about your experience, but there was some pretty like egotistic classmate I had during my time in programming. And I could say this because I thought, like, I was at UC for geo, and I always thought my classmate there was more chill. But in software, there's definitely that ego problem. And I think finding people who could work well together, willing to help each other out and not be like that superstar trying to do everything themselves is like difficult to find. And I wish interviews kind of emphasize more on that part. So that's my take on it.
That's great. I hope that more employers start looking at it in a more holistic way going forward, because I think that's just going to help them create better, find better fits for people who are going to be happier on their team and more productive too. So our next question is something that our juniors deal with a lot. So did you have imposter syndrome when you started your new job, and how did you deal with it?
I can go first if that's okay. So I definitely had imposter syndrome. I had it before in my last job working at that high level, and how I dealt with it there was I was a subject matter expert, right? And I had a team of the world's best experts backing me up, but that's another thing. But here, what I tried to do to get over imposter syndrome is really focus on what I've learned so far, right? And if I didn't know something, it wasn't, oh, I don't know that. It's, I don't know that yet. So that's how I kind of got around with it, got over it. And during boot camp, there were 2 times when it occurred. And it only occurred once during the interview process where they asked me to actually do the take-home interview. I had a sudden flash of, oh my gosh, like this is, I can't do this. But again, I kind of worked through it. But I haven't had it since I've been working in it. And I think that's part of what New was saying. I've got such a supportive team, right? Everyone is excellent mentor, everyone gives time, everyone helps you work through things. So there are no stupid questions, which is also great. So that also helps you getting over that fear, right? When everyone at the top, all the way down the food chain is saying, I don't know this, and that's totally fine, right? That open atmosphere really helps, I think, with ongoing any kind of nibbling fears of imposter syndrome.
Leah?
Yeah, for imposter syndrome. This one's a little tough because when I started at the company I'm working at Neo, and when I started as an intern, I was kind of onboarded with a team of interns myself, and we kind of were given a lot of opportunity to like make an impact, and we had great mentorship. So it's hard to say that we had imposter syndrome at the company, especially because it's so encouraged to ask the stupid questions or the questions that you think are dumb, or come to all these learning events. But I remember first couple of years of university, it's definitely very common. And I had imposter syndrome a lot, kind of switching from a degree that all of my friends were in business, didn't know anyone in computer science too well. And it might seem that everyone else is, getting all the A's, or everyone knows what they're doing. But when you look back and you get to your final years and kind of chat with your peers, it's like definitely not the case at all. Like everyone is kind of figuring out along the way. So I think it's great to keep in mind that like no one knows everything. You always have this set of knowledge that other people may not have. And learning from each other has been a great experience so far. So feel very lucky in that capacity.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to pull some questions in from the chat first. So, has working remotely as a brand new software developer been okay, or?
I can answer that. No, it's better now, but the first 3 months was really hard. And back to the imposter syndrome thing, I definitely felt it like even more so, I guess, remotely. Because the difference with remotely with school, you had classmates, but when you're in a new company, I really didn't know anyone, and it was like through Slack. And I gotta say, just be mentally prepared and have some hobbies. I must admit, I cleaned my house way more than I would have because I was like needed to like just take a breather. Yeah, I would say it's difficult, and if looking back now on it, if you're struggling, just mention it right away. I think some part of me didn't want to ask for help because I was like, I'm new at this. I shouldn't be having problem setting up my environment. But if you are, that's totally okay. Forget that you can't even set up your ID. You're working remotely. If you need help, just message them. But yeah, but the thing is, I also haven't like been onboarded in person. So right now, my only experience is remotely, and I think others could potentially give more insight the difference being onboarding remotely versus in person.
Tristan, how about you?
Yeah, I can chip in on this. I mean, even in a perfect world, onboarding can be great. It can be pretty horrible, right? Even face to face. So, and that depends really on the company and how much resources they can put into that process. So, like just like boot camp, it's a transition to learning online and dealing with those challenges. I'm very lucky because I have a hybrid option, so I can 6 blocks north. I can see my office, so I can go and work there, which I do when I get stuck, or I can work from home. But I think that's a really good question, Lisa. Like, how do you adapt to that new field when you don't have those supports, right? When you do have a little bit of a fear about asking those questions and how to get things set up. And I think luckily now there are some technological ways that we can get over that. Things like Code with Me, for example. And of course, during COVID, there's been huge advancements in Zoom and Slack and all these other things, right? So we do have some technological tools to help with that process, but a lot of it comes down, I think, to if the onboarding process is not sound to begin with, then it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But definitely, I think I was fortunate to, in that I have that option to just walk 12 minutes to go and get help if I need to.
Do you have any tips for people who are working remotely on how they could do it more, or how they can be more successful?
I definitely recommend joining Discord teams or any kind of online groups like YYC or actually I messaged Celine over the Slack for the develop and design Slack group. Yeah, because I find it helpful to just like message friends throughout remotely, and I really liked it at my current place. All the junior devs, we are in the same Discord, so it's nice to just have someone to send memes to. And I definitely say I'm more proactive now, making sure I meet people outside because it could get very lonely being fully remote. I gotta admit, because this room is all I see every day, and it's where my home is. So, but if it's not for you, that's why I like tech. This hybrid options is like going back to the office. One thing I do say is a positive of remote is I don't live in St. Albert. I would have not worked for this company. I did not. Sorry, Leanne. I kind of like Calgary. We have the Chinook. I wouldn't have like moved up there for that job. So the nice thing about remote is it opened up more opportunities for you for like different companies and projects you could potentially work on. So I always say that's the one good side about it.
Okay. Lisa, another question. I think, Jose, I'm going to put this one out for you. How well do you think your education programs prepared you for actual work as a software developer?
So unfortunately, I'm still unemployed, but I think I'm pretty prepared coming out of boot camp because they taught me how to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And they also taught me how to Google, how to just search and how to connect with people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There is no such thing as a stupid question, as Tristan said. That's how I came out of my education program.
Well, Tristan, since you did the same boot camp as Jose, and you're on the other side of that. Now that you have a job, how do you think your program prepared you?
Well, I did a boot camp, a 3-month boot camp, and honestly, it was very challenging, like physically demanding hours. They say that the boot camp, you're only designed to actually retain 70% of it, right? And I'm a big context guy, so I'm like, well, where's the other 30%? And so I was learning things, and we'd be learning something, you're like, oh, but I just want to learn that, and you don't get to fully learn something before something else comes along. So I think, with a 3-month boot camp, there's only so much you can cram in. There's only so much you learn. In many ways, you're scratching the surface in many ways. And for me, what I did was I highlighted several things that I wanted to go back to, right? Because you can't do everything, right? You really can't do everything. So it's like, yeah, I want to learn more about this, this, and this. And that's kind of where I focused, which did help me actually with getting a job, because my final project was actually using Ruby on Rails. Which is what Pixel Tree does, for example, in React. So that experience definitely helped. So, I mean, I can't comment on the longer programs because I haven't done that, but of course they're much more comprehensive and you learn a lot more stuff over a greater period of time. Personally, did it prepare me for everything? Nope. Am I going to be learning for years? Yeah. Am I learning every day? Definitely. But it did get me enough, I think, I have enough enthusiasm, I have enough curiosity. I was looking into the things on my own, building on the knowledge that I did have. And so I think that's important too, right? Because you might have other education, other background. And so those transferable skills and soft skills, I think, can help you too, and whatever they are, right? I mean, you just have to kind of think positively about how you can leverage it into this situation.
Anything you didn't learn that you wish you had learned?
Me personally, gosh, well, I'm sure there's lots of things that I don't even know that are out there. But no, I mean, I felt it was good. It moved very quickly. I would have liked to have a bit of slower pace, but of course that would defeat the purpose of boot camp. But what would I really liked? I don't know. That's a really tough question, actually. I'm going to have to throw it back to my colleagues and see, because I think I've got enough on my learning plate right now, like to keep me busy for a long time.
In boot camp, I wish we would have learned more TypeScript and more in depth on React. I realized it was more based on a back end side of the boot camp instead of a front end. So I would have preferred more front end fundamentals than back end.
Interesting. Leah, how about you? You guys all had very different backgrounds and education, so.
Yeah, I would say that it's tough to say. So I think both U of C and U of A, they're still trailing behind. Tech is like growing too fast for the education system to catch up and like re-implement the whole system. And also your professors are kind of also trained on more legacy systems as well. So there's still, I think that there's a lot of like iteration happening, but all of the classes where professors would take it upon themselves to learn the new tech and teach it to their students were swamped all of the time because they were so high demand. So in a way it prepared me in the sense that you learn a lot of the fundamental knowledge that you need to know. You learn a lot of project management, but every modern tech stack you can think of is just skimmed in university still at this time. I think in computer science, you learn a little bit of non-relational databases, a little bit of React, but TypeScript and JavaScript if you're lucky near the end of your degree, kind of, and only if you specialize in it. So it taught me how to, be resourceful and learn, but did I learn any tech stack that I'm probably going to use for the rest of my career? Not really, no, none of that. So pros and cons. In some ways it prepared me technically, very specifically technically, maybe not.
New, how about your SATE program?
Yeah, so I took the 2 years program. Yeah, different for everyone. I guess I'm more the middle person because it's not exactly the boot camp. It's not 4 years. I like to think of the education as the tutorial and work as the final boss. I don't think, and it's like the Anne said, I'm not working in the tech stack that school taught me, and it's said, it's moving too quickly. It would give you fundamentals, but even then, SAIT only taught me certain like fundamentals because they basically took the computer science program, took out all the math. So, but you are left with more superficial. Like we were taught, like, for example, the operating system, but we never got into it. And a lot of things I had to learn, like I had to learn how to lead code. So I had to use YouTube and free bootcamp and learn all the algorithm that I didn't learn. And then I got a job learning Node and React. I did not learn that in my program. So I learned it, took a Udemy course, somehow passed the interview, learn more in depth how to actually use it at the job. So I would say less concerned, see what education program is right for you, because I already started at UC where I had a degree, so I didn't felt like going back for computer science, hence why I went for the 2 years option. But if you have the time, then go for 4 years. If you don't and you want to go bootcamp, go to a bootcamp. I don't think it really matters once you get that first job, because you're going to be learning constantly.
So that leads in really well to the next question. What do you think made the difference for you to get that first job? I think Tristan kind of talked about it a little bit, about how he did the networking. And
at the risk of talking too much, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never been in a human resources perspective, so I can't put myself in those shoes. But I think, I mean, if you make the decision to change to this, you're already demonstrating curiosity, right? You're demonstrating a passion for learning. You're taking a big risk, right? And that shows risk management as well. Maybe you don't know it, but that is managing risk. And so you're already demonstrating some things that I think are positive. And if you combine those with technical skills, and if you're just not afraid to talk and just, be honest about what you want to do and where you want to go, that was really the approach I took. I was pretty surprised because during bootcamp they said, oh yeah, tidy up your GitHub because someone will look at it. I thought, no one's ever going to look at my GitHub, right? Join these groups and just say hello and people start talking to you. I thought, no, that's not going to happen, but it actually did. It actually did work. And so I was I was lucky that I did clean up my GitHub prior to that. I was very fortunate to connect with a bunch of people and just start talking. So I think for me, it was very organic and just it came out of a conversation, right? And this isn't a humble brag or anything, but I didn't even actually apply. I just started talking and it went from there. And I know that's very, it's not typical, right? But I think if you do have any soft skills and things like that, any transferable skills, try and highlight those and bring those in as well. But I think, and maybe Serena will tell you because she was part of the process, but I think also my verbal commitment and ongoing actual demonstrating ongoing learning outside of day to day. I think that's what I love and that's what I said I would do and that's what I'm doing. So I think that might, help like human resources people and those to kind of, just give you that little step up.
I think it was the extremely respectable headshot you had on Slack.
Yes, I didn't look like a 70s porn star back then.
How about, I guess, Leah, you kind of talked about how you got that job right through internships. New, how about you? How did you get your first job?
Yeah, funny story about that. I think it's have to do with chance. There were when I applied to this job, it said mid to senior, and I kid you not, I just filled my resume and shotgun it all, and somehow I got an interview invite for that position, and I still remember my lead, good guy. He was like, "Why are you here? You do realize this is for mid and senior," and I was like, well, I didn't line my resume. And I think what made him decide to hire me was, aside from a grant that I found out later, minus that, I asked a lot of questions because, like I said, I went to that interview knowing full well I wasn't going to get it because, like, I wasn't going to pretend to be a senior, but I took that interview as an opportunity to try to improve on myself. So at the end of the interview, I asked, like, can you give me tips on what I could do to improve my chances? And he was like nice. He actually went through my resume, look at my GitHub, give me some tips, and I wrote it all down. And I did that with a lot of interviews. And I think another thing I would recommend to people who are struggling is look for hackathon, and this is going to be back to the soft skills. So I enter a hackathon called Mintbean, and I message two random people on Discord, and we decided to pair up. One was in Los Angeles, one was in Nevada, and for 1 week we created a blackjack game. And I was really surprised when I put down my resume. Nearly all the company asked me about it. And this company that hired Media's technology finally gave me off after I told them I did a hackathon. And that was because they were disputed. I mean, we had developers all over the place. We had some developers in South America. We have developers in BC. And I think nowadays, especially with COVID, with teams being all split up, if you have experience working with people, especially with different time zone, that's saying a lot. It's saying like you could work with others, you could organize despite the time zone difference. Because I remember for the hackathon, I had to remember because it was in Pacific time that every time we meet up, I was 1 hour ahead. And now that I'm working with teams in different time zone, it's become very important.
Cool. There's actually a hackathon coming up in Calgary at the end of July. So if you're someone looking for a job or a student, looking to put something on your portfolio, keep an eye on that. It'll be hosted by Platform Calgary and the City of Calgary. So there'll be information coming out soon about that. Okay, let's see.
Sorry, before we go on, I think you made a really good point about the intercultural skills, right? The soft skills, like, working across different concepts of age, gender, hierarchy, time. Those are really important, right? And I think, again, it goes into that wider concept of fit. So those are really good to practice. And so that's really great. And also good for you for doing a hackathon. That's really rad.
Oh, yeah, to those people struggling, I only did it because I needed something on my resume. So
hackathons are great for that. They actually they show a lot of skills, not just technical. They show your ability to meet new people, do project management, figure out an idea, determine what it is that you're going to deliver, and then actually execute on that product. So I think it's a great place to showcase your skills. And the hackathon coming up in July, all the employers are going to be watching. Is there a skill you use in your work that you never thought you would need? Oh, too bad Tiffany's not on the panel because she's our meme generator. And I bet that's a skill she never thought she'd need. Who wants to take this one?
I'm not employed, but one skill you do need is being friendly. Growing up, I looked at computer science as people who are nerds and then just stay in their rooms and just code all day. But like looking at it now, it's completely opposite. Anybody can code. Anybody can become a software developer. So one skill would be like to make friends, have chats with people. It doesn't have to be just dirt down work. You can also have chats and be friendly with people.
I would say one thing, I think we had a talk on this pretty recently, but maybe especially going into software development, it's kind of like a more technical field. Empathy in the workplace is really important, especially when you're kind of like working with a team or leading a team. You have to be like very cognizant of anything that's going on with them that is maybe going to stop their contributions to a project. And a lot of people, I think, don't see that as a skill that you're going to need just as a coworker, but it's definitely proven to be like invaluable during the projects I've been on board on so far.
I like to add thing I didn't think you need. I think we focus too much on coding, but I would say focus on your organizational skills. Because when you in like starting meetings with like designers, people in marketing, other develop, you need to keep track of all of that. And that's one thing school didn't really taught us, because like when I'm like in a design, like we would have weekly meetings with people marketing, the dev and design, like write notes, organize it like per sprint or per ticket. And that's a good way to keep you on track of your tasks, because you're going to be like being pulled in different direction constantly. So I would definitely say keep your files organized, keep organized notes, and try not to double book yourself on meetings.
I haven't learned that one yet. So I hope I don't need that one to keep my job. For someone who is self-taught with no prior experience, what are some key things we should have or should do or have on a resume to get that first job?
Just make stuff and deploy it. That's all I could say. Like, have a GitHub ready. You'd be surprised how many people don't have any projects on there, or they fork it or copy it from another repo and it's obvious not theirs. So if you just, and it doesn't need to be impressive too. It just shows like you can code, you know how to pick a cloud. Oh yeah, pick a cloud provider. It doesn't matter if it's AWS, Google, or Azure. Pick one and learn how to deploy your project.
Netlify is a great one too. I think there is a free tier there that hooks up really nicely into GitHub that does auto deploys. So as an employer, what she's saying is right. I'm looking for people who have done something. So showing that you have made that step to do something with what you've learned, to have something on your portfolio. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it shows that you aren't afraid to make that step. I'm not actually supposed to comment as a moderator, so I'm doing a really bad job. Imposter syndrome, it's fine. Anybody else have anything for that question before we move on?
I mean, I guess building on what New said, just demonstrating that you've created things and you can talk about them and you can maybe explain design decisions or why you did something and versus something else, something like that. Because when I came out of the boot camp, I had 3 months experience, yes. But the project, I was able to talk a lot about the project that we did, and it just meshed with what Pixeltree was doing. So I think that was a large part of it too. And so, I mean, if you do have to GitHub, if you demonstrate that pattern of actually committing and working on it and designing things and building things, that shows commitment too, and that means a lot, I think.
Definitely. Were you able to dictate what you wanted to remember the most in boot camp? I'm sure you guys remembered everything from boot camp. Jose, what do you remember?
Obviously, like Tristan said, you don't remember everything, but I remembered most what I was interested in the most, like, so React, libraries, pure CSS, building things, making stuff colorful, designing stuff. All of that is the stuff I remembered because I liked it. So for me, it's like if I like something, I'll remember it more than something I don't like.
Yeah, I think that's good because part of the bootcamp is you're not going to love everything, right? And that's why I think, at least in the bootcamp, you cover a range of things because you can say, well, I don't like X, but actually I do like Y. And for me, that was how I kind of narrowed it down. Like, I was like, yes, we've learned X, but it's not as attractive as Y, and so I'll focus more on that later, which is what I did. But I mean, as to say, dictate what we wanted to remember, I mean, we have to do all these things. It's just some things you kind of like, yeah, I probably won't use that again.
I hope you were right. So how do you come up with project ideas? Oh, Tristan, you definitely have to tell them about your final project.
Well, I would say do something you're passionate about, right? There's nothing worse than being asked to do something that you don't really like or you don't really enjoy. So very briefly, without talking all your ears off, my final project was a Lord of the Rings quote generator. So I love Lord of the Rings, read all the books, watched the movies, blah, blah, blah. Even have long hair like Legolas. But so that was the passion, right? That was the idea for what I wanted to do. And that's how I kind of pitched it to my colleagues, and that's how it went. Just an organic discussion around what I was really passionate about.
I think that's great advice. Definitely go with something you're passionate about because you're going to be able to put more of your heart into it. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm going to speed through this last question, and then I have a final question for the panelists after this. So what part of your work do you like most? Let's go around to everybody. Who would like to go first?
I could start first. Probably opportunity. where I work, there's kind of a lot of freedom, and if you want to do something, you're pretty much, you can do it. If you demonstrate that you have enough experience and you're willing to like put the hours in, you can work on any project, you can work on any team, as long as you're kind of willing to dedicate the time. And also the people who are willing to help you achieve that it's pretty much everyone. So as long as you want to do something and you're really passionate about it, then you have the capacity to do it. It doesn't matter if you're junior, senior, intermediate, product design, it's completely up to you.
Yeah, what I like the most is I definitely encourage those who are listening to give startups, especially small company, a chance. What I like the most is because there's limited people, you could choose what you want to do. And the nice part about them is that if you choose it, there you go. You have ownership of that. It doesn't matter if you're not qualified, no matter how much you hate yourself later for it. But looking back, I'm really glad I joined a startup now, because there was a lot of things they really wouldn't have given a junior, but they let me do it. And I think you learn a lot from just taking a chance. And if you fail at it, so what? It's a learning experience. So I definitely said, don't be afraid of the unknown and picking a harder task. You may not know what you're going to learn at the end. And if you end up like crying, you can blame me for if you take that advice. So there you go.
Jose, I know you're unemployed, but tell us what you like the most about software development so far.
For me, it would be the amount of creativeness you have. You can think of something and just build it. You can look at something you want to build, and then all you have to do is just code, write a few lines of code, and then you'll see it pop up. That's the part that brought me into it, being able to build whatever you want to build.
Okay, and then I guess for me, honestly, it's the mentorship opportunities, it's the learning opportunities. Like everyone is, like I said, there are no stupid questions, right? It's a really supportive, collaborative learning environment, and I think that for me is the perfect way to learn, right? And as New said, you can try something, and if it doesn't work, then you call the cavalry in, and they help you understand it, right? So that for me is that's what I enjoy the most. It's the learning, it's the interaction with all my colleagues, doing little bits here and there.
Awesome. All right, we're almost out of time. So the last question I have for each of you is, what advice would you give to others trying to get into software?
I'll go first. Advice that I would give, I think a lot of people going to events and talking to people, like Tristan kind of mentioned earlier, is really, really important. Not only does it give you a perspective of kind of where you would fit and what company you want to work at, because it's not all about just trying to get a job to work at a company. The best way to get a job is to find the company that you want to work at and pursue that. There's a place where you fit best, and finding that is going to be invaluable. So going to events is the biggest thing. Reaching out to people who work at companies and just chatting, figuring out what it's like to work there. Everyone in the industry is always happy to talk to you, and answer any of your questions. So yeah, just reaching out. And sometimes it can be a little bit daunting, or maybe you feel nervous, but everyone's in the same boat. And I guarantee that everyone wants to talk to you and answer your questions about what it's like to work somewhere. So don't be afraid to reach out, is my short story there.
My advice for people going to tech, especially if you're in the interview phase, is take some time for yourself, because my journey to get my first job was several months of nonstop interview. And that's when I get it. The imposter syndrome is the greatest then, especially with these techno assessment, because you kind of feel like your whole worth as a developer is boiled down to, oh, I only scored this much out of statistical assessment. I would say, if you're starting to feel like that, I would say to take a break, which I know is kind of hard because it's kind of pressure. But my biggest advice to you is just to be kind to yourself, and you're more than what these like crazy technical assessments say you are, especially when it's boiled down to these numerical value. And yeah, and I would just say, just remember that. And everyone have gone through it. We all hate this process. Eventually, there's a light end of the tunnel. I reach it, you reach it. I think that's just one of the filtering events that go on in tech. Is like that whole process, like it's definitely going to filter people out. I can't imagine if you don't like coding that you're going to last that long through our process to get that first job.
My advice would be networking. For me, I'm a good example because I'm in everybody's shoes. I'm still looking for a job. A month ago, I didn't even know what YYC Dev was, and I learned about it through networking. And that's how I got this opportunity to talk to you guys and be a part of the panel. It was through networking.
If I had some advice, I would say to do your due diligence, your research into whether you're considering a longer course versus a boot camp. And if you are looking at those things, try and get some testimonials or talk to someone that's done it, right? Because that's really great. And the last thing is, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Always learning.
Some really awesome advice and the perfect note for us to end the meetup with. So thanks everyone for coming. I will be hanging out in the Platform Calgary Discord for a little bit. If you guys have any additional questions or want to learn more about where you should be networking or other events coming up or how you find out about more events coming up, please pop into there and then I'll be around for a bit. And it was nice to see everyone. I hope to see you guys in person next month. So good night.
Nice meeting everyone. See you guys.
Yeah. See ya.